It's time to get all set for Sunday, a podcast for busy and distracted Catholics with your hosts, Scott Williams and Jeff Traylor.
When I hear the coffee brewing, I think, what the heck we doing? Because I got barely any sleep last night. As the diaper bag I pack with Hot Wheels dollies and some snacks, I say a prayer there'll be a seat in the crime room this time. It's alright, cause I'm all set for Sunday. It's alright, cause I'm all set for. It's alright, cause I'm all set for. It's alright, cause I'm all set for Sunday.
Welcome to All Set for Sunday, a podcast for busy and distracted Catholics be a little more prepared for Sunday Mass. My name is Scott Williams. My co-host is Jeff Traylor. Hey, Jeff.
Hi, Scott. How are you?
Great.
Sorry, I was giggling because right before you started your intro, Father just went, "Hi, Mom." So, Sam, can we make sure that's actually the intro?
I was just
For
gonna
our number one fan.
I was just gonna dog you a little bit that he was talking about busy and distracted Catholics, and you were distracted, but
I was distracted by
you were distracted by the priest. So
which counts.
yeah,
It was part of a homily.
that
I think, so.
backfired.
The whole
Talk
thing
about
is about being distracted, so.
Yeah. Talk about your all-time backfires.
Honor
right.
your father and mother.
What about?
He said, honor your father and mother. He turned that into a homily.
Oh, look at that.
His hi, Mom.
That's so silly.
All right. That's the podcast. Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Time to go to the dentist. Great.
2:30 already.
2:30. You're crushing it today.
Oh, man.
Hung out with my dad on Sunday.
All right. You ready for the 2-minute drill?
Yes, I am. It is the 8th Sunday in Ordinary Time.
Where's that?
Rome.
Okay.
Busy and distracted Catholic.
Sorry.
He was pointing at a picture on his phone, by the way, for
Yeah.
listeners.
And viewers, because they obviously
Yeah.
can't see.
Yeah. 8th Sunday in Ordinary Time. Our first reading comes from the book of Sirach, chapter 27. So Sirach is reflecting on the importance of speech and actions in revealing a person's character. He says that a person is known by their words, and their behavior reveals their true nature. They're known by their words, but their true nature is in their behavior. And it emphasizes this idea that a person's actions in the home and their treatment of others will reflect their inner character. It also highlights the value of wisdom, which allows us to act justly and with understanding in all situations. Our responsorial psalm this week is, "Lord, it is good to give thanks to you." Meh. Just meh. I went to a daily mass last week. It was on Friday. Full mumbler, like very small chapel, maybe 20 people attending, and like nobody got the response by the third time even.
I feel like mumblers really only exist for daily mass.
Maybe, yeah.
Because like you always got the book. At least something.
The
on
identifier
Sunday.
I think of a mumbler at a Sunday mass is when you're 2 verses into the response, when people start grabbing their book to open it because they're like, I can't remember this. I got to get this thing open. But this week, meh. That's where we're at.
I like it.
But last week was a banger, man. I've been thinking about it all week.
Mhm.
What was last week?
Last week was now I'm forgetting.
It was a banger.
It was
Don't worry about
the Lord is kind and merciful.
So I have to confess this.
Ooh.
I actually
Did you do
Bless you,
Hallelujah?
Father.
was.
For you have
Oh, thank you. I was.
Thank you for saying words.
I
words matter. Did you listen to the first reading?
last week when I was looking at the readings, the psalm popped into my head, and immediately like image of cantors from
Banger.
childhood.
Yes.
And like I started singing it in my head, and I was like kind of rocking out, and then I thought, dang it, Jeff. Like I was like, man, this psalm is a banger.
Welcome to essentially every friend I've ever had. So just finds himself going, dang it, Jeff.
Responsorial psalm inception.
Yes. All right. The second reading is come from first letter of the Corinthians. So Paul is speaking of victory over death and how it comes out of Christ's resurrection. When the perishable puts on the imperishable and the mortal puts on immortality, death is swallowed up by victory. So that's all we have to do. He quotes the victory cry, "Where, O death, is your victory?" and reassures believers that they are steadfast in the Lord's work knowing their labor is not in vain. This passage encourages Christians to remain faithful and hopeful, confident in the eternal triumph Christ has secured. Memento Mori.
More than just a Matt Maher song, yeah.
Yes. The gospel then, our gospel is Luke. We all know we're rolling some Luke. Very Gilmore Girls of us. Chapter 6, 39 to 45. Jesus told his disciples in a parable, can a blind person guide a blind person? Will not both fall into a pit? No disciple is superior to the teacher, but when fully trained, every disciple will be like his teacher. Why do you notice the splinter in your brother's eye, but do not perceive the wood beam in your own? How can you say to your brother, brother, let me remove the splinter in your eye, when you do not even notice the wood beam in your own eye? You hypocrite, remove the wood beam from your eye first, then you will see clearly to remove the splinter from your brother's eye. A good tree does not rot or bear rotten fruit, nor does a rotten tree bear good fruit. For every tree is known by its own fruit. For people do not pick figs from thorn bushes, nor do they gather grapes from brambles. A good person out of the store of goodness in his heart produces good. An evil person out of the store of evil produces evil. For the fullness of the heart, the mouth speaks.
All right.
Boom.
Thanks, Jeff.
Hey, thanks.
Beautiful.
Did Jeff get anything wrong, Father Dufresne?
Not that I heard.
Great.
Well
How much
done.
were you listening?
I was listening. I wanted to make
Thank
sure
you.
I knew what the readings were before I gave my homily ideas.
Amazing. Well, we're
This is when you were discovering what they were.
Well, I didn't have a podcast to listen to prepare for the podcast.
That's fair. That's fair. There's probably one out there.
it's a good one.
Yeah.
Number one Catholic mass prep for busy and distracted Catholics on Spotify, actually.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. That's quite the
It
chart.
just came out.
Yeah.
Just
it
came out.
was on my year wrapped.
Yeah.
It said we were number one. So pretty great.
What are you preaching on this
Put
weekend?
that on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, so actually this week I think there's going to be a lot of rejoicing at St. Philip Neri this weekend because
Why?
well, I mean it's the last Sunday before Lent, right? But
Okay.
also because it is the last Sunday in a series of sermons that I've been giving. So I think
I thought you were going to say you were announcing you were leaving.
no. Whoa, hey. That stings. I mean, death doesn't have any sting, but Jeff, on the other hand. So I've been giving a series of sermons on the precepts of the church.
Yep.
And so
Classic.
I'm ending it this weekend, mostly because it's the last weekend before Lent. So it seems like a good time to come to a conclusion. And
Did you finish them all, or are you just stopping?
there's one that I'm going to cover at a different time.
Okay.
So the like sixth precept of the church.
Cliffhanger.
But anyway, so the precept of the church that I'm talking about this particular week is supporting the material needs of the church. So it's an opportunity to give thanks because people at St. Philip Neri have been super generous, and we've really grown a lot recently. But also just an encouragement to remind people that we need continued generosity, and to talk about in Hispanic ministry, because the church functions very differently here than in other countries, financially speaking. You do a lot of education around that. So it's an opportunity to educate people about the precept of the church, and also, what does our particular church need? But the broader theme of the homily that I think will apply to people outside of just St. Philip Neri, not that we don't all need to remember to materially support the needs of the church, but is integrity. Like, that's really what the driving point of these readings, or one of the driving themes of these readings, is integrity. And this sermon series began because in January, after the first of the year, we had gone through this cycle of Holy Days of Obligation again. So you've got, like, starts with August 15th every year, and then you go through All Saints, December 8th, Christmas, New Year's Day, right? And after New Year's Day, I was a little bit sad, because attendance had not been, it'd been better than in the past, which is good, but it wasn't like we had a Sunday on a holy day of obligation, right? So, and I just kind of realized, like, I wonder how many of my people have heard about the precepts of the church, right? And I also wonder if they've actually heard about the why, which I think is the deeper point, right? Because that's, so I've been taking each precept and saying, like, why do we do this? What is the precept that the church tells us? Like, what does the church call us to do? And then talking about ways that we can apply that in our lives concretely. And so sharing that with people, I think I've seen an instant like interest from people in applying these things in their life. And I think it's because people desire integrity. Like, people desire a life where they are living what they believe, right? We actually desire that. It's difficult for us to live when we're disintegrated, right? When we have a divided heart, or our mind is divided from our heart, or whatever. And so one of the things that the precepts of the church do is it brings our external actions into harmony with our beliefs. Like, the church actually teaches that the precepts of the church guarantee the minimum for growth and love of God and love of neighbor. So if I don't cover these bases, I can't grow in love of God and love of neighbor.
Yeah.
And so, like, when our Lord is saying, you know, out of the fullness of the heart, the mouth speaks, or when Sirach is saying, you know, if you want to test somebody and see what they're made of, essentially, like, listen to them speak, like, let them talk. Because you will know people by their fruits, right? You know a tree by its fruits. And so the Lord is calling us to have integrity of life, to live what we believe and what he has taught us, and to put that into practice in our external actions in a way that bears fruit, in a way that shows forth what we believe and who we are, like who we are and whose we are. So
yeah, that it is a really great first reading to come off of, like, these precepts of the church, and this, like, reminder of what we're called to and what we're asked to do and what we're committing to as Catholics. It's a great reading to say, like, awesome to just say it, but are we living it? Are we doing it? Are our actions defining it, right? Like, do people know you're Catholic because of the way you carry yourself and the things you do and the places you go and the actions, not just that you say it, right? Not just that you wear a big crucifix or something like that.
yeah, I think what's interesting about our time, and that's completely different than the times in which these readings were composed or in which this saying was spoken by our Lord,
Cars.
is that
oh, sorry,
other cars, vehicles, smartphones. No, like, it's the way that we think. It's in fairness. It's the way that we think about wisdom, and maybe a lot of people don't think about wisdom, Father, like, but I would argue that they do, because we all choose role models in our life. So we all choose people who we perceive as wise or successful, or who have something to teach us.
Yeah.
But in our age, what's very different from these ancient societies is that wisdom and virtue were always connected. Like, this is what Sirach's talking about. And when Jesus says, you know, a student or a disciple cannot be greater than his teacher, what I usually tell people is, like, so we can't expect better treatment in this world than Jesus got, right? Because we're not greater than our teacher. But the flip side of that is, if the teacher is not virtuous, if the teacher is not a good man or woman, like, the students are toast. Like, how can they learn how to become a good man or woman if if they're a disciple of someone who is not, right? And so we choose our role models a lot of times based on one element of success, or the way they can use language, or a technical expertise in one area, or because they're talented at sports. But those role models don't always live a life of integrity, right? So it's like what these readings are kind of challenging for us is to seek role models, but also to be, as Christians, witnesses of people who live a life of integrity, where that wisdom, our beliefs, is connected to virtue, or the way that we live, our habits.
I was on a video call just the other day, and I'd met this guy one time before, like a event or something like that, but I didn't know him well. I got on this call, and on the background of his wall, his real background, not a virtual one. There's like family pictures and things like that, but then there was this banner that said, "There are no half saints." And I was reflecting this morning. I was just thinking about that a little bit more, and thinking about like what it means to fully give of yourself to the Lord, and that there's either you're pursuing sainthood or you're not pursuing sainthood. There's not a way that you can be like halfway there. There's trying and there's striving, but there's still a decision point where you're saying, I'm either going towards Jesus or I'm walking away from him. That is a binary path. And today's readings and what you reflected on in the world of integrity, like the church gives us that path, gives us pretty clear definitions of what that is. And over the course of time, I feel like we've, for no reason of our own, have learned different levels of that, or if it's on some sort of spectrum where like you can, go to mass on Sundays if you don't have anything else going on, or you can go to mass on a holy day of obligation if it conveniently fits into your schedule. And of course there's like exceptions and things like that, but this should be the exception to the rule, not the choice of yourself.
Well, I think that also speaks to, how, and this is what I've been trying to do. It's not just so people don't think, I don't just get up every Sunday and say, this is one precept of the church, and then sit back to like do it and sit back down. Like try to explain. And this is what I'm trying to is
poster
like
board behind you.
Exactly. One more week. But the way that we think about our faith and the obligations of our faith, like those religious practices that are a part of being Catholic, is how we think about a lot of other requirements, right? Like how do most people think about the speed limit? It's like, well, how much can I speed without getting caught, right? How much can I evade these? Like, how much can I claim on my taxes and have to pay as little as possible? Like, right? And I think that sneaks into our faith. And so we look at the precepts of the church and it's like, okay, what's the bare minimum that I have to do? And what the Lord's calling us to be saints is to have a life where we begin with those like minimum habits. It's like, of course, you're not going to abandon the precepts of the church as you grow more spiritually mature. But it's a question of constantly asking, how much can I give? Right. And this is where like I'm at St. Philip Neri, I'm really honing in on the responsorial psalm, actually.
Yeah.
Because it's talking about gratitude, like giving thanks to the Lord. Like why a lot of times we think, oh, Father wants my money. Like Father's talking about supporting the material needs of the church. What's the least I can give and still be fulfilling my obligation?
Get him
right?
off my back.
And it's like, actually what this is, and is it's an expression of our thanksgiving to God, because he has given me all that I have and he has made me all that I am. So like nothing I have actually is just mine.
Yeah. You mentioned this earlier and it got me thinking, and you mentioned like the way that giving is done in the United States, or the way that churches are set up structurally, financially, is different than other countries. What is it like in other countries?
I have not studied that in depth from like objective sources, but anecdotally what I hear is that there are many countries where the church building itself is like government funded, right? Or government owned. So the concept that every 20 years or every 25 or 30 years we're going to have to pay to put a roof on this building just does not enter into the everyday Catholic's mind in many other countries. Or like maintenance and things are not something that people are familiar with. And in other countries, structures are still set up in a way that's a little more traditional in the church, of where there's a customary, they call them stole fees. So like when people
Like stole, like you were.
no, like so you would get your child baptized, and there would be a customary offering for that.
Uh-huh.
And so when that is for everything, like when you get baptized, when you get confirmed, when you get first communion, they're all like, people have a mindset
Weddings,
where
funerals,
I'm like paying for services that I receive instead of putting something in the collection every weekend.
Got it.
So there's the idea of tithing is not something that a lot of my people have heard about necessarily. In the same way we see it here.
I think there's also, at least in like the little bit I know, there are countries where all tithing, there's even dioceses in the US where this is the case. All tithing happens to the diocese or to the cathedral, and then money is distributed amongst parishes based on need. But like the tithing all goes direct, which means that you're dispersing larger amounts of funds, and when they're needed in certain places, it's not the every parish for themselves kind of model or whatever. But I know like in Germany, the church is like many churches or many parishes are funded by tax money. It's like the neighborhood, like the municipality around you funds the Catholic Church. So I don't know.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. I put a note here. Do you think this is a good time for us to announce our Patreon account?
Yeah, for sure.
Since we're talking about charitable giving.
Wow.
JK, LOL. I wouldn't even know how to start one.
Oh gosh.
All right.
Any other I don't know, new gospel nuggets?
I mean,
Or psalm nuggets?
In broad strokes, that's kind of what I'm talking about this week.
Yeah.
I
like it.
I think it's something that I think about often is, and something that people ask me frequently is like, well, Father, then how much should I give? Because people genuinely, it's good to know like the minimum expectation sometimes, like even if you're not just trying to be like, what's the least I can do to like buy my way into heaven or whatever. Like, so I usually give people the guideline of the 10%, right? Like, which is what we see in the Old Testament, starting with, Abraham and Melchizedek, and say like, you don't have to give necessarily 10% to your local parish, but to give charitably, off the top, 10% of your annual income is what I generally, and the nice thing about a percentage is that it adjusts with your income. It's not like we're asking everybody, no matter your tax bracket, to give the same amount, right? But also just to, this is something that should be sacrificial. Like we go out of our way to thank people when they're generous with us, right? When they take care of us, when we see them express love for us, and so we should desire to be sacrificial and giving thanks to the Lord. So, and your local parish can offer you more often when they can offer more services, programming, and things when you are generous. And seeing that you're investing in your local community and in the souls in that community is it's important to remember that.
It takes a lot to run a church.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it too.
Yeah, I mean, think about when you're putting money in the collection basket on Sunday, like you're investing in all those people at Matt, and all the people who like, you wouldn't believe the amount of people that wander in throughout the week, and people who are searching, and like our attendance is like our church is bursting at the seams right now because people are just so hungry. And it's like we need to make sure this building's still here so that it can burst at the seams, right? Like, and it doesn't just fall down. So like that investment is something that people have made before us, and that's why our parishes and our communities are here. And so we're extending that legacy by our generous giving. So
I mean, this is funny. I came off of this past weekend. This was part of the homily at my parish, was just talking about kind of a state of the parish and giving and like an encouragement for, I sit on our finance council, and we try to once a year schedule like we start the discussion, and then we'll schedule like a weekend where we're encouraging either people to transition to online giving or to like up their online giving, and we try to like incentivize it or help out or whatever. But it is that reminder that like every year we should adjust it, right? We should, like, the cost of living goes up, but like the expense of running a church goes up every year as well. And that was kind of the discussion there was,
well, and cost of living is going up for the people who serve you in the parish on the parish staff too.
Yeah. Which is always like the biggest line item in the budget is taking care of those people. And if you want good people and good ministries, you should pay people well. We should absolutely do that. So anyway, I'll get off that soapbox before Scott climbs up on it. He can get real good going.
And we ain't got time.
No. But I had another note here that I am a big fan of this like sermon series concept. Like, I think we talked about this a little bit last week with Father Roscoe, I think, but I think that there's something there to like sharing this kind of thing and putting it out there and shit. Like, I think there's a great opportunity for ongoing catechesis in these series. And not surprisingly, I've heard this from Father McCarthy. I've heard it from you. I've heard like people, Father Meyer, like, I mean, people who are friends and talk to each other and talk about, tips and tricks and things that are going on. But there's some real value in this whole idea of here's an opportunity for us to like change things. And like, frankly, like if there's a series going on, I'm going to be tuning in. Like, I want to come back. I want to hear the next one. So good for you. I think that's great.
Well, Pope Benedict talks about it I think it's in Sacramentum Caritatis.
So
talks about
giving
homilies. Like, they should always be connected to the readings, but he talks about the value of these catechetical sermons and when you think about it, I mean, I often forget this, and that's not to my credit, but like the Sunday homily is the touchstone. It's like the heart of most Catholics' spiritual counsel or spiritual enrichment for the entire week. And it's like when you think about that, and a lot of times I find myself sitting around like, where was everybody on this holy day of obligation? Like, somebody should do something about this. And it's like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to do something about this. Like,
wait, so that's the other note I was going to make is like, I applaud you so much for that concept, because the other side is like, I've heard that from so many priests. Well, people aren't coming. Why aren't these school families? They don't come to mass. We need to get more of these school families to mass. And it's like, well, let's not just complain about it. Let's figure out how to do it. Are we like,
have we introduced them to Jesus?
Yeah.
Like,
are we inviting
I've also
them?
noticed that oftentimes there's significantly less mass offerings than there would be on a Sunday for those particular days.
Yeah.
So
no,
how are you supposed to get there if the times aren't there?
Yeah. No, I think that there is this like I applaud the like proactive thought of like, okay, I'm frustrated by this, but let's get to the root and figure out like, well, what can I do to change this? What can I do to affect this? Right. Versus it just being, well, less people are showing up. We just don't have the attendance. People aren't coming.
All right. 3-minute whiteboard. Let's fix this. How do we do it?
Well,
Steps of the church series.
No. Holy days of obligation. How do you get your whole parish to show up? On your market, said go. Okay. I think by starting by times. So like if you want to have everybody come to church, if you usually have 4 Sunday masses, find out a way to have 4 holy day masses. So there's a anticipation mass. There should be a time that is clearly before working hours, one in the middle of the day, and then one in the evening, and probably one for school children. So maybe that's in the middle of the day one. 2, how do we tell people about it? Father Meyer always says that you have to tell people 7 times for them to understand it. So 1, they have to know it's a thing and not just at the previous mass. Bulletins are, okay, we'll count that as 1. So that's 2. So tell them about it 5 more times, 5, 6, 7. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
5 more times.
Yeah. Any communication.
Homily.
Signage.
Like homily a couple of weeks before, signage.
Big signs. I mean,
we send out 2 flock notes usually before a holy day of obligation.
Text messages. Yeah. I think more parishes should be communicating by text to their parishioners. We put out social giant media signs for weeks for Lent for fish fries. What if we did the same for holy days?
Yeah.
Reminding everyone who's driving by that there's a holy day coming.
Marquee.
Airplane sign.
Yeah, billboards.
Mhm.
Yeah.
radio.
I mean,
podcast
yeah.
ad.
Imagine that if the diocese put billboards up for holy days with like a QR code that took you to masstimes.org or something like that listed holy day masses for, like, it doesn't have to be just an individual parish
Mhm.
effort, right? Like,
That's a great idea, actually.
yeah, and people would talk about it. Like, people would talk about it.
And I bet you would get like an increase of giving that would more than cover the cost of those billboards.
Mhm.
Actually, I have no idea how much.
I mean, even if there isn't an increase of giving, like the value of those souls who are showing up to mass because of that is infinite.
yeah, but somebody's gonna be like, "That's
Right.
gonna cost too much money, Father. We can't do it."
And that's when I reply with what I just said.
Yeah.
No, I think
What is the value of one more soul in heaven, my child?
here
That's
is
how you respond to that.
I have had, since I've been a priest, I've had countless experiences of saying something to a member of the laity, usually, family members or friends, but like saying something that I take for granted because I went to, I studied theology in college. I
Mhm.
was intentional in my faith in high school, and I went to seminary. So I say something that I think is ordinary, and people are like, I've never heard that before. Or I'll say something, well, this is actually what this means. And people are like, how would I have known that?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And so that's where I do fall into the temptation sometimes that we do as priests to like get bitter or just to like feel sorry for ourselves because no one's coming.
But we have to remind
But it's
ourselves
like-
to be like get down to the basics.
Who has told, like,
Yeah.
this is the thing that I'm realizing is like, if no one's told them how, and if I haven't gone out of my way to communicate with
Yeah.
them 7 times. So I actually started in January on my sermon for Sundays and Holy Days of Obligation. I listed all the Sundays and Holy Days of Obligation twice throughout the homily. So they hear it and they're like,
Hmm.
obviously
5 more
they're not
times
going to
and you're done.
memorize it, but it's like
I like it.
throughout the year, reminding people like reserve these dates. I encourage people to take them as vacation days because that's what the church said. Like,
Nice.
we should treat it like a
At
Sunday.
Catholic Concepts, we send out a magnet at the beginning of the year that has all the holy days of obligation that people
you
can
have
put in
that
their
in-
fridge.
Do you have that in Spanish?
No, but the dates they're just kind of dates. So,
Yeah.
We can make them in Spanish.
yeah,
We just
should.
don't know who the person receiving it is, what language they're in.
That's true.
We
Wait, we're still good. Wait, I got another one.
Okay.
It's billboards. Check.
done.
Holy days of obligation, often also referred to as
Holy days of
Days
opportunity.
of precept.
Don't say that.
feast days,
Ah,
which there are many feast days, but many
Yeah.
holy days of obligation are also, but like we should celebrate them. They
Yeah.
should be like,
They're solemnities.
yes. My point being, like, we do coffee and donuts on just any Sunday. Like,
mm.
Wine and cheese.
there should be like a little morning breakfast bar thing, and then an evening wine and cheese and like gathering, and like we should make a big deal about the people so that the people who show up, like, not only is there like another draw to come,
Mhm.
we should offer free cupcakes to every kid in the school if they show up to that evening mass with their parents, because you know what'll happen? Parents will show up. Parents are crazy. They'll do anything for their kids.
Yeah.
Like, look at youth sports. There's the real answer. How do we just make the same draw for youth sports, but as a whole nother soapbox that I could get on? And
We have
but-
time for one dumb question. If you have one
Whoa.
dumb question, we've been going into this, but
Saved by the bell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it
sorry,
2:30 already?
I have a dentist appointment. I have to get to.
You're the one that did this. All right.
I made it earlier.
All right. We've been doing this like,
But that was a good
This
time.
is a serious question.
You're 2
You're
foot
probably
fine to
about
me.
at the end of it, but you're a listener, so I would imagine you're prepared for this. We've been talking about in a year podcasts, right? Like, so you had Bible in a year, you had the catechism in a year.
Mhm.
Currently, there's rosary in a year going on. What would be, if you had to do an in a year podcast? And again, you don't have to have 365 of something to do this, but
Mhm.
it's a,
It's
what is
usually
the
once
thing?
a week.
You can
right?
take the weekends off.
Sometimes it's daily. A lot of
Ooh.
times, well, it's daily.
Oh
a
no,
lot
it
of
is
them.
daily,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah.
So, but what is like a lesson that you could teach in 5 to 7 minute chunks?
Precepts in a year.
I mean, can't say precepts in a year. We already did that.
This is not the recurring question that I thought I was gonna get.
Ooh,
Um,
well, Scott
So
said I
this
only
is
got one,
challenging.
so
um,
the other one's written down here. But
Uh,
If he has an answer, he can say it quick.
I liked Father McCarthy's answer. I
Priesthood in a year. You guys should do that.
I would not be the one I would nominate to do priesthood in a year.
You could be the host. Ask him the questions.
I could. That would I might learn. I would learn something. I maybe prayer in a year, like just to go through the spiritual masters, like some of the greatest spiritual teachers in the faith.
365 of them.
St. Alphonsus Liguori, and no, like just to go through every day a little snippet of their writings. I don't know. I didn't think about this. I also love to think of ideas and then
Have somebody else do them.
I don't like necessarily always follow through on my big ideas. Like I wanted to do a series on Our Lady of Guadalupe in the parish, and I still might do that, but it's not going to look like how I had planned it. Maybe Our Lady of Guadalupe in a year.
I mean, I think you could do that for sure.
So
Patrons of the Americas, that'd be a good one.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. First vivid memory of a priest. You said you thought of it.
Yeah, no. So Father Kramer was our pastor growing up, Father Bill Kramer, and I actually got ordained on his 45th anniversary of ordination.
That's cool.
So he was ordained on the same day as me, 45 years earlier. May he rest in peace. He's passed away now. But when I just remember my impression of him, he was very serious. He had high expectations. Which didn't necessarily make him the most popular pastor. But he just taught me this love of the liturgy. Like I don't know that I have a specific memory or image of him, but when I was growing up as a server, he taught me this respect and this love of the liturgy, that it was like the most important thing that we did. And you could see that he lived that. Like he had integrity in his life in that aspect of just, I'm not just going to tell you this when you're in the sacristy and then do something else when we're out in the church. Like he carried that through everything. And I remember he always used to pick up my little brother after mass, like, which is one of my favorite things, is like when little kids run up to me at the end of mass and they're like,
Yeah.
I love that. And so because of the vestments, my brother thought he didn't have legs for the longest time. He like came over for dinner once and he was wearing pants and a clerical shirt, and my brother was like, he has legs. Anyway,
That's
Father
awesome.
Kramer was
That's
awesome.
amazing.
It sounds like he, this first reading, like that's what you were saying, like his words and his actions. He lived it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like it.
I mean, some other qualities definitely came out when he spoke sometimes. Like, he was, yeah, but
It's awesome.
I love Father Kramer. So,
All right.
All right, Father. Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you, Father.
yeah, absolutely.
Bye.
Yeah.
It's always fun.
Bye, everyone.
It's alright, cause I'm all set for. It's alright, cause I'm all set for. It's alright, cause I'm all set for Sunday.